What's going on, friends and family? How we doing? Back at y'all with another one tonight. Notice a little weird thing about how we interact when it comes to like everyday bypassing. Well, not just bypassing, but like I noticed this in general with how people interact before they begin conversations, right? It has to do a lot with eye contact. And I kind of want to get on that just because I know like it would be unimportant, right? If it was something that didn't hold weight, but because I know like how assumption works and how people think, right? Especially when they have an ego or when they have a certain way they operate to gain validation. You hear about stuff like aura farming and stuff, right? Now, I'm not gonna say that stuff is like childish or whatnot. I mean, if it makes you feel better to do a certain thing, then do that. But if it's like to a point where you're going off of such nuanced interactions that really don't hold real weight, and you're using that to justify your ego, there might be an issue, right? But I want to get on eye contact specifically because I know how people use that as a way to justify their ego or to justify their behavior or their mindset when they operate in society. And I know that if you can't tell what they're trying to do, you will never know because they will never speak on this. It's kind of a weird thing to talk about because you never consider like basic eye contact something that people really focus on, right? In order to gain certain things in life. Because, for most people, there's insecurities they operate on. And the way people think and operate happens to vary between person to person. And I've noticed that most people that have an ego that's not necessarily bound in truth and like to seek validation in different ways and formats, especially when it comes to like social media and whatnot, they use eye contact to get off that sense of status. And it's kind of weird because what is that really? Like, you look at somebody and it's like, oh, you see someone and you notice how they are. You might like how they look or how they represent themselves. You might like the style that they wear or maybe just the way they carry themselves when they're around, out and about. I mean, that's cool, but people use eye contact for validation and will use it to justify a behavior based on how they interact with you with eye contact. This is something that I know that attractive people know straight up. Like, I don't even have to go into detail. I know like that eye contact shit is weird, right? It's like you can get signed off by somebody for looking incorrectly, depending on how they see looking, right? Or depending on how they define looking. You can get completely signed out of existence to certain people by looking. And that's kind of crazy. I mean, there is some people who have like staring issues, right? I think it stems from like being creeped out from the past. I guess, when older dudes or even older ladies look at the young and the young don't want to be so ogled, and it kind of makes them feel insecure or like it feels weird to be ogled in such a way, monetary experience and whatnot. But I've noticed that behavior gets repeated. Like we start to see this more and more often. And then, because we have to be around each other, out and about, just going places, because things like grocery stores have people, having to go around each other and whatnot, or going to train stations or bus stations, or just going to places where there are people walking, right? Or just around, even in your offices or even in, wherever you go, third spaces. When you're looking at people and, you don't know them, you're just passing by, they use what they do in that interaction to justify their ego, but also their behavior with you. So I'm gonna say it like this, or I'll put it like this. Say you're someone who has an ego. However you built that ego, whatever. And then that you use this not to justify hating people or to seem like an asshole or an arrogant prick or whatnot. Your ego is based on maintaining your peace as well as protection for yourself, because you don't want to be seen in a light where people will probably try to demean or attack you based on how they perceive you, right? So you're working on your perception based on your truths or what you believe in or how you operate in life. And then, you go out and about in the world, and you have to go around people, and then there are people who notice that about you, right? You give off that energy about you. It's really something you can't deny. And I really do like how that works in life too. Like, the more you learn about things and the more you embody the traits, it shows on your character. It shows in the way you operate, the way you present yourself, right? If you look like you take care of yourself, it's because your energy has been harnessed to a point where you want to take care of yourself. You love yourself, so you take care of yourself, and then it represents itself in your energy as well as how you look and how you operate, right? And so this might breed a sense of insecurity in some people who can't do that naturally, or who feel like it's harder for them to do it, or who feel like there are advantages you might have over other people, which is why I say this is really specific to attractive people, I've noticed. But it doesn't just have to be attractive people. It can be people who just have traits that other people don't have, like intelligence, like a profound intelligence, or maybe empathy, or maybe a certain skill or talent that other people just don't have at the time, right? So with eye contact, you start to notice subtle things, right? So I'll just go off a basic one. The quick flash and look away type, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll bypass somebody you probably know, likely a little or whatnot, and then they look at you for a hot second and then look away, and as if they never wanted to look at you, and then they focus on something completely different and then try to act as if they don't see you, right? That kind of energy, right? So that's telling, in their ego, that's saying, oh, I don't like this person for some reason, right? It could be an insecurity or whatnot, but they're subtly telling you that they don't like you with that eye contact. They're subtly telling you that they see you as less than them with that eye contact, and they want you to react on that behavior. And if you do, it validates their ego. So this is partly why we're living in like a reaction economy now, because people need to feel a sense of purpose, and because they don't know how to do that naturally, like some of us, they decide that in order to get off their ego, in order for other people to believe it, they think that they need to manage other people's perceptions. They also think that they need to operate a certain way. They need to perform a certain way. They need to believe a certain thing. And then this tells them, I have to change the whole way I operate in life in order to gain that status, right? And now this doesn't have to be the case. Yes, you can use that ability to try to bring some sort of influence to yourself, just because, you know, people want more influence and people want to be perceived a certain way, but you can't really change a person's opinion on you. If they decide how they feel about you, that's how they feel about you. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't really have to be anything that you worry too much about. People just decide what they want to decide based on how they live their life and how their worldview is shaped. You can't really change how they've created that. So if they've decided that they want to just go one off with people, the second they decide something about you, that's it. That's that person. Whereas other person who has a more understanding mindset or a more perception changing type of mindset, they'll see somebody in a certain light and then they'll hold on to that notion. But if it changes over time, then they change their perception, or they change their opinion on them, which is a better option, a better way to think, if you ask me. But some people, you know, you just can't do anything about them. But anyways, so eye contact can be used to do this, right? So say you're passing by somebody, right? I think a lot of people who like ride bikes or who do a lot of walking can speak on, or at least understand what I'm about to say. But when you're walking past people and then you want to just greet people, right? Say you're somebody who's very like warm-hearted and you're very open to people, so you like to greet people, right? You like to bring out that energy to people because you like to uplift naturally. It doesn't have to be fake either. If you like to do that, you like to do that. But some people will see that as weakness. Some people will see that even as neediness, right? And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, but some people maybe, especially when some of us get older and then it gets harder to like meet people and whatnot. And then when you live in a certain neighborhood for a while and you want to meet the people around there, you want to be more open, right? More open-hearted and give off the perception that you're an open person, right? Which is a good thing. But people will take that as weakness, right? People with unhealed egos, people with egos that don't necessarily have some legitimacy and truth, right? So what this means is that when they look at you, right, and as a passerby, and you're trying to bring off your energy to them, to uplift them or greet them somehow, right? And they don't like that, or they look away from you, or they tell themselves, I don't like this person for such and such reason. I'm just going to subtly tell them that by not looking at them, they decide that that's their perception, period. Especially if you don't have many interactions with these people. Now, some people do get over that. Some people, if you're somebody who's a regular walker, right? You walk in certain areas for a certain amount of days or weeks, right? And people see you often, the same kind of people. Eventually, they could get over that, right? And that's one thing about human nature. We're very understanding to a point, right? When you see somebody enough times and you like them, and you want to talk to them, but it's hard for you to do that because of, you know, the way that you see people or the way that you see yourself. So you feel like you can't do that. Over time, that goes down, right? Because the normalcy and the repetition tells people, okay, this person isn't really that bad of a person as I thought. I guess I can just get over it for now and allow them to greet me or allow myself to understand them a bit better, right? Which is a good thing. That's one thing I do like about humans. We do allow ourselves to finally learn things with enough repetitions. I don't know how to feel about that, because if you know anything about psychopathy, doing the same thing over and over is not really healthy. But I guess repetitions can be useful for proof, right? I guess, yeah, I mean, that makes a good, that would be a good point, because with repetitions and, you know, consistency, it tells you that this person has other things going on and they're not necessarily looking to try to demean you by passing by or by trying to go a certain way, right? Some people really get into the really psychological bullshit with that and think if a person goes a certain way or does a certain thing a certain amount of times, it makes them think this person is trying to do something related to me. They're probably trying to stalk me or something, or they're probably trying to watch what I'm doing, or they're probably trying to get some information on me type of deal, right? And that's because of what we've been seeing on social media and because of what we learned about this Orwellian system and how we're being watched, and you know, it just makes everybody on their toes all the time. And it's like, you know, it makes people second guess everything. But we got to get over that, okay? I think, for the most part, I think truth is coming back to the forefront. We're not really so worried about the secondary stuff or the tertiary stuff. It's because on the forefront, we're humans, right? We have to live, we have to do things to maintain that livelihood. Even if the government tries to harm us in subtle ways, right? Especially when it's unfair, we still have to live. And that drive to live precedes everything else, right? So it doesn't matter what they do in the tertiary or the secondary, as long as the primary is maintained for their living, that should be the primary focus for what they're doing, right? So that should be what you define how people operate. The primary is they're trying to live. So their actions reflect that, which is a good thing, okay? Everybody wants to live. Nobody wants to have their life shortened for no reason. It's just a natural thing, okay? But anyways, eye contact is a way to demonize in that interaction. So basically, those who have egos that they don't necessarily want dismantled in their eyes through giving away their essence. I don't know how to describe it, but people think they're giving away themselves when they allow you to speak to them. They feel as if that they're giving away access to you, and that makes them feel less than for some reason. When in reality, when you allow yourself to be heard or be understood by somebody else and you don't know them, that means that you're more compassionate, or you at least have a warmer energy that allows people to approach you. It makes you more approachable, it makes you more attractive, it makes you more influential, and it makes you be seen in the light by somebody who could possibly speak on you to other people and speak positively based on that interaction. And basically that allows that person to see you in a light that would be better than if you just decided that you don't care about the person, or that you don't necessarily want them to view you in a certain light at all. Like you don't even want to interact at all. So you completely dead the situation completely and just don't look at them or try to look away as if you're better than, right? That better than stuff is gonna get you, it's gonna bite you in the ass eventually if you don't manage it. I am somebody who understands this. I'm telling you, I've done this too. I have been that person. It's not cool. It's not cool to be on the other end. It's not cool. I've done it and I've had it on the other end. I've had it on the other end way more than I've done it. It's not cool. It doesn't work. It doesn't really do you any justice. You just get seen as an asshole to that person. And if that person goes and has more interactions with people and speak on that interaction, and then people relate, what do you expect? They're gonna all think the same thing, like, oh, that person's probably arrogant. That person probably is conceited, or that person is full of themselves. That's what they're gonna think. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing that happens with that kind of stuff. Now there is the nuance that, oh, this person could just be shy, or this person could just be introverted, or this person could just be closed off, right? Because of trauma or something, or because of being unhealed. That's understandable. But they're not going to use that. They're not going to say that unless they know you. They're not going to go off that information unless they have some information on you. And if they're just making up information about you, it's a worse recipe, if you ask me, a recipe for disaster. So it's better to just be warm on first occasion. When you meet people, right, and say you want to be enlightening to them, you want to build their light up, or you want to uplift them, just be comforting and be forthcoming and be warm-hearted, because that allows them to see you in a light that is positive. So you get seen in a certain light, and basically you want to come off warm-hearted because that allows for positive interactions, and then that memory allows people to believe that that consistency is what you probably actually operate as. So they see you as somebody that's more influential, or that's more approachable, just because you consistently put out the energy that you are somebody who's forthcoming and warm-hearted, right? And that all stems back to the eye contact. So if you start, trying to speak to people, but before you're interacting, you're allowing yourself to view them and then try to approach them without seeming closed off, then that allows you to be more approached, or to be seen as approachable, right? Whereas if you decided to be closed off, look away, or not try to open yourself up, right? It makes you get seen as insecure, or it makes you get seen as weird, or something that's not necessarily positive, right? And that's just because we kind of live in a very interaction-based society, and so when you try to put yourself out there, those little interactions play a lot in it. Just because I don't know how to explain it other than people are kind of cowardly, and that is kind of the case. We've been domesticated to a point where we're not so worried about too much in depth with conversation. We go based off of the few interactions we have when we go outside, just because nowadays people are they're more on their phones than they are in real life. So it's kind of it does become nerve-wracking after a certain point when you're somebody who uses social media more than you interact in real life. And so when you're trying to interact with people, and then you're going off eye contact to justify if you want to talk to somebody or not, that does say to them subliminally that you kind of have not been too socialized lately, or you're kind of closed off, and they feel like it's better to just not talk to you, right? I wouldn't say that that's something to demonize you, but that's how people think, because we're more focused on either phone conversations, FaceTimes, texting, right? We have such a fast-paced society now because of technology, and we only have so many hours in a day, so you don't really have much time to talk to people, right? Especially if you got a lot to do. But at the end of the day, I still think we can have better interactions if we just allowed ourselves. But there's not much you can do about people deciding to just throw you out the window just because of the eye contact situation, right? Which is weird. So, and it goes back to a couple things too. I've noticed that some of the older people, they wear like the black shades, or they kind of they're kind of very meticulous to be watching if you're looking at them before you approach. Like, say you're somebody who they probably think you would try to talk to them or speak to them, they'll probably try to not look at you before you even approach. So they operate in a certain way to make it seem like they're too busy to speak to you, or that they're doing something to not speak to you, right? Just because they want to give off the impression that they're too busy to be doing that, or they don't want to have to get into an interaction with you just because maybe there's some sort of ego limitation. Maybe they feel like you're going to be too strong or too forthcoming with them, or maybe they think that they're better than you, right? Whatever the situation. I just know that it's weird that we're doing that. We should be way more open with each other, especially if you guys live in the same neighborhood. If you live around the same people, have to see them all the time, you shouldn't want to conceptualize those interactions, because that's really weird. Like, you have to see this person all the time. You have to be around them all the time, especially if you have children and family. They see all that stuff, right? So don't be weird about the eye contact, just because that's weird. You know what I'm saying? That I've never understood why people want to get and start to make that such a trivial situation. But it's like, I guess that's just how it is now, okay? Because of social media and because of our phones. I think once the phones start getting lessened, once we start not really giving a damn about the phone so much, and it is kind of going down. I think social media is taking a hit right now, especially with certain creators. And then texting is taking a hit as well because people are really superficial, and you know, nowadays they're using AI to have a conversation, which is really fucking superficial. So it's like we don't even care anymore. The real stuff is way better. That's way more fulfilling. This is why people are trying to get us to be more interactive in real life, and why this government kind of wants that to happen too, just because of the past. But I've noticed that the eye contact situation is part of bringing us back. It's just we got to get over that. So me, I'm speaking on it because I want us to get over that, because that shit is like lame. It's so lame. Like, I've never been somebody to really give a damn about the eye contact situation. It's just, if you see somebody, you want to talk to them, you do that. You don't make the situation meticulous, and you don't trivialize the situation just because you have an ego issue or because you're afraid of something, right? You can say hello to somebody and keep walking. That's simple as hell. You could just wave at them even. Just acknowledge them, right? Acknowledging one another does a great service in keeping everybody alive. Actually, it does a great service in keeping everybody feeling good and feeling up in their spirits, because it allows them to understand that there's people out there that see them, right? People really shy for that validation. They really want that validation because sometimes they just don't get it, right? I understand some people really just don't have any way to be validated outside of those sparse interactions. So it's like they go off eye contact because they don't know what else to do, right? Because there's nothing else you can do about certain people, right? Especially if you want to talk to somebody and you know that they're probably like really engaging or funny or humorous, you want to be able to talk to them. But some people are just so closed off because their ego, right? That's kind of all I wanted to get on. The eye contact stuff is weird. Let's get over it. Okay, it's lame. Stop being weird. Eventually, when we break through that barrier, then we start to do the greetings back again. Like, that becomes a normalcy. And then I think after that, we'll start to see people be way more interactive in real life. Like, instead of everything be so quiet when you go to certain places, people will probably be talking way more, like much louder and much more vibrant conversation, way more energetic. And then you start to see different profiles of people and whatnot. The cliques kind of die down. They're more accepting of one another, right? And they allow other people to speak to them, or like at least interact with their groups and whatnot. And this stuff allows us to finally be back together and be seen as one cohesive society again, because we're really broken right now. We're really broken. I've seen people just demonize straight up off of the eye contact, my dude. Like, enough times they do that and they just decide to throw you out, bro. They'll just go tell somebody, oh, this person is just this, that, and all in the above just because of the eye contact. If that is not a sign to a big problem, I don't know what is, all right? Anyway, that's all I wanted to get on. I hope you guys have a good night, and peace out.